Coming up on the Branding Deep Dive podcast.
I was looking at celebrity profile pictures, and they all have something that stands out. It's not no basic selfie or anything. It's like a picture of them with a solid background. You know, something that stands out every time. So I was like, you know what? I need a solid background. And I was like, you know, my favorite color is orange. Why not make it orange? So I made my background orange, and then I opened my barber account, my barber Instagram account, and I did the same thing there. And then slowly I just realized that, you know, if you look at McDonald's, you know, red and white, red and yellow, you think of McDonald's, you know, Walmart, blue, you know. Me and Home Depot are actually beefing right now over the color orange. But no, like, you know, orange, you think of Home Depot, you know, and like all these companies they have, or purple for Taco Bell. So I realized that if I associate myself with a color, whenever people see orange, that's going to get them to maybe, possibly, in some way, shape, or form, think about my company.
This is Ahmed Cheema, and welcome to the Branding Deep Dive podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast where we have in-depth discussions about what brands are doing well to drive customer loyalty and how you can take those principles and apply them to your own brand. Today, we're talking to Mohammad Turaani. Mohammad owns and operates a barber studio in Canton, Michigan, and is also involved in youth programming and teaching in the area. In this episode, we dive deep into Mohammad's journey to becoming a barber, opening his own studio, getting clients, running multiple Instagram accounts, and much, much more. If you have a service-based business or want to grow your personal brand, this episode is a must listen. Now, here's Mohammad Turaani. All right, Mohammad Turaani, it's been a long time. I know we've been trying to do this for a few weeks now. Appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you putting me on here, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. Awesome. For the audience that is not familiar with you and the work you do, can you give them a brief introduction to?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Mohammad Turaani. I'm 21 years old. I work here in Canton, Michigan, in the MAC building, which is the Masjid's community center. I opened a private barber studio in here where I do, haircuts. I also work very closely with the Masjid. I make events for them. I'm the guy's social committee team lead. So basically, I just make social events for the guys of the community. And I also teach a Saturday program for the youth. Just try to be around for the youth as much as I can. And it's cool that I work in the same building that I teach in. So a lot of times I'll be cutting in my studio, and then some of the guys will just come over and hang out. So I try to create that kind of atmosphere where it's like, you know.
Mm-hmm. I want to start with your journey as a barber, right? So how did you come into this profession, this field? You're 21 years old. You're a young guy, right? Like, I didn't even know you were 21. I actually thought you were a little bit older. So
yeah, it's a beard, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you're, mashallah, pretty mature, right? So how did you end up, and you have a nice studio now, like how did you end up finding out that this is something that I want to do, right? You know, I feel like a lot of our listeners may be thinking like, oh, I have this idea, that idea, especially for creative people like you and I, right? Like we have all these ideas and there's all these things that, you know, we could do because we try it, you know, like we try all these different things. Like you got cars, you designed this whole place yourself, you got all these different things that mashallah you did. Like, how did you know this is the path that you want to double down
on? So with this one, I don't really have an answer as to why it was this one that I chose, because I did try multiple things. There was a point where I thought I was going to open a shoe cleaning business. There was a point that I thought I was going to open like a lawnmower business. I was going to call it Mow Lawns. You get it? And I was going to do it in the winter. It was going to be No Mow Snow.
Oh, wow.
You get it? Mow?
Yeah.
But I thought I was going to do that for a minute. But I think it just happened to be that when I really got sick of working for people, the idea of becoming a barber kind of fell into my path. And that's why I just stuck with it, because I was like, all right, I need to stick with something. And I think it was more of a coincidence thing. I think I could have like pursued any of those options, even like interior design. I could have pursued that, or video editing. But it was just this one at the time that just happened to fall into that time. And then it also was recommended to me by my mentor, Osama. And I think a part of it might be the fact that in this one specifically, there was a role model. There was somebody who I looked at who's been doing it, and I seen the success, and I seen how it's a, pretty cool lifestyle. There was nobody, with a shoe cleaning business that I looked up to. It was just an idea I had. Nobody with a lawnmower business, nobody with a mechanic, business that I necessarily looked up to. But with this one, Osama recommended it to me because Nadir was doing it, and at the time I just finished working like 8 different jobs, not like all at the same time, but job after job, and each time I had a boss, and I really got sick of it. And I remember at the time when it was suggested to me, I was working as valet in Ann Arbor, and it was me, Nadir, Osama, and maybe 1 or 2 other guys, and it was Nadir and Osama. I think both of them, maybe one or the other, I don't know. Somebody suggested it, like, oh, why don't you cut hair? And Nadir told me at the time that so many guys say, oh yeah, I want to do that, and they just never do it. And that kind of motivated me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the one to do it. So that same week, I and I realized that in doing this, you're your own boss. And after working 8 different jobs, I worked at just Taco Bell, Marshalls, Jet's Pizza, Tint World, just a bunch of places. And after working all of those, I realized I was like, the lifestyle I want is to be an independent, like my own boss. So that same week, I went to Walmart. I bought some clippers. I convinced my brother to let me cut his hair, and I posted it. Man, I just cut his hair and I posted it, and it was horrible. Like, looking back now, horrible. But I advertised the heck out of it. Like, I was confident. I was like, I was like so proud of it. And I told people like, hey, like I remember I still have the video to this day. I was like, I'm a carpenter. I'm a mechanic. I do it all. I'm a barber now. Hit me up. I'll cut your hair $0 to $5, depending on how much hair you got. And people hit me up, man. Like, it was just like, all right, if it's $0, why not? I need to get cleaned up. And at the time, a lot of guys my age don't have much money, Right. When I was like 18 at the time. So they're like, yeah, why not? So, I kept doing that. And then at the time, I quit while I started cutting hair, I quit valet, and I ended up working at Tint World while I was kind of cutting people's hair on the side. And then I told the owner of Tint World that, hey, eventually I'm going to pursue this barber route, right? And he said, we both thought that would be like eventually, like later down the line, like maybe a year later, but within a month, I got so busy with haircuts that I had to quit Tint World.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, and these are no longer $0 haircuts, right?
Yeah, I know. Bro, when I tell people this story, they're like, oh man, I wish I knew about you then. But they don't realize that it was a $0, like it was a haircut worth $0. Like it was not good by any means. But it was because of those people that got me. Like I'm thankful for those people because I was able to practice. And then it was a good trade off. I get to practice, they get a free haircut. Might not be good, but
yeah. So when you started this, and you started with your brother as your first client, had you cut hair before then?
Never.
So that was the first time, and you're 18 years old.
First time, April 3rd, 2019.
And then, so from there, you just advertised the heck out of it, started at literally $0, cutting people's hair for free, and just built your way up. And you're saying within a month, you were able to...
Within a month, I was able to build a small clientele that I was able to charge. Enough for me to have a full day's worth of work every day and quit my job at the time. That's
insane. MashaAllah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that sticks out in your story that I really wanted to double down on here is that you mentioned that you knew you didn't want to work for a boss and you wanted to be your own boss. I think most people in life have that feeling at some point, but what you see oftentimes is that when you're your own boss, you have to have your own level of discipline, right? There's no one above you to tell you hey, you got to get up now.
Yeah.
I do this, that, the other thing, right? How have you kind of managed that, right? Not having a boss over you, not having someone telling you what to do. How have you made I've seen a lot of people that they're like, I'll quit, I'll figure something out, and then they're actually not able to. They get lazy, right? They end up sleeping all day and playing video games, and they're like, yeah. And then before they know it, they their job again, right? So how have you kind of made sure to keep yourself disciplined?
So in the beginning, it was just purely thrill. like just the thrill of it. Like I wanted to cut as many heads as I can. I'm talking like I would post on my story. Like this is like by the time I'm charging, I would post on my story. I'm bored and I feel like cutting hair. I'm offering a free haircut for the next person to hit me up. Free haircut. Just pull up right now, and I would do it. I was literally just so thrilled by it, and I would do it. It did start to die out though. The thrill, once you get used to something, it's not as. And when it started to die out is when I went and I kind of left, because I don't consider when I first started cutting hair as the beginning of my business, because I did go to a shop and worked for a boss. I did have a boss while I was cutting hair in Ypsilanti, and that was like that kept me disciplined because I had to show up to work. I had a boss. It was after that that like idea like or that thought hit me. I was like, oh shoot! Like after I left that shop, I was like, nobody's telling me when to come in now. And I noticed that I started getting lazy. I did start getting lazy. I went from like cutting like close to 10 hours to maybe like half of that, like 5 hours, and part of it was because of COVID. COVID had started at the time, but still, like I knew I could have done more, but I was being lazy. And once I realized it, I mean, alhamdulillah, like I was able to think, okay, I noticed there's an issue, and I had to really like just force myself. Like there's no method of doing it other than just like forcing myself. I'm like, you know what? I need to just put in more hours. If I want this business to succeed, I'm going to need to put in more hours. A big factor, actually, I would say that helps is seeing the success. Because at the time, I hadn't like reached a point where I'm stagnant yet. I was still kind of exponentially growing. And so seeing that success continue to motivate me, so I'd see like, okay, I put in 10 hours yesterday and I seen the results of it. Now that makes me want to put in 10 hours today, so that or by the week or whatever it was, however I thought about it at the time.
So really just you're just forcing yourself to work and then also monitoring your progress and seeing growth.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's really good advice for anyone that's listening, is that, don't, like a lot of people will just jump off the deep end and think that, oh, like I'll figure it out. Don't do that. Have some things that you're actually measuring. And once you see enough growth and you can kind of sustain it, that's when you kind of, you take the leap and then you double down. Right?
Yeah.
So that's important. I want to jump over and really just get into this shop and your style in particular, the color orange. So right now, for the audience who's watching on video, orange is everywhere, right? So I wanted to pick your brain on, is this like a conscious branding move that you did, or you just like the color orange and it just happened that way? Or so even your profiles are all, your profile picture is orange, and both your barber profile and your personal. So walk me through the color orange. Like what's going on with that?
So I'll tell you why I love the color orange for so much first. It's just like it's such a simple story. As a kid, one of my favorite shows was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and my favorite character was Michelangelo, and he wore the orange bandana. That's it, literally. That's it. So my favorite color has always been orange as a kid. There was a point where I started to build my personal Instagram before I even started. Around the time I started cutting hair. But before I turned it into like a company or a brand, I started developing my personal Instagram, and I just wanted to create videos on it. And I noticed that I needed a I was looking at celebrity profile pictures, and they all have something that stands out. It's not no basic selfie or anything. It's like a picture of them with a solid background, something that stands out every time. So I was like, I need a solid background. And I was like, my favorite color is orange. Why not make it orange? So I made my background orange, and then I opened my barber account, my barber Instagram account, and I did the same thing there. And then slowly I just realized that, if you look at McDonald's, red and white, red and yellow, you think of McDonald's, Walmart, blue, me and Home Depot are actually beefing right now over the color orange. But no, like, orange, you think of Home Depot, and like all these companies they have, or purple for Taco Bell. So I realized that if I associate myself with a color, whenever people see orange, that's going to get them to maybe, possibly, in some way, shape, or form, think about my company.
What's interesting there is that you mentioned that you looked at what celebrities were doing. And then earlier you were saying that you had a role model to go off in the barber business. So I think an important thread here is that, learning from people that are doing it, right? Like people that have success, what are they doing? And then kind of taking that and applying that. So that's really good advice there. And then the other thing, when we were doing our podcast cover art, the main thing we were thinking is it's like a white feed. How do we make sure that like when someone scrolls through that it catches their eye, right? And orange is one of those colors that pops, right? Like
so is yellow.
Yeah, yellow is exactly right. And so we use yellow, and then we use with my co-host, there's like a little dark, not dark, but like light pinkish kind of color. And so we use kind of both of those, and then we still haven't built out the website or any of the other things, but like that's kind of how we were thinking through. And I think orange is like just a really cool example. And you've really like everywhere you look, I know the audience can't see it, but there's orange everywhere, right? Yeah. And so orange and black is like seems like is your theme. So that's really awesome. Yeah. And it's interesting to see how you think through it, right? Because I think a lot of people aren't thinking through it. And do you think that it has a tangible effect, or is it because there's really no way to measure it, right? So like you don't know. I guess if people tell you like, hey, I love the orange or stuff like that, like maybe you can kind of get a feeling, but like you can't measure, hey, did you think of me? When you saw this
of course not, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about it, like I said, speaking of role models, like I like to look at people who succeeded in something, right? And like I said, all these companies like intentionally chose those colors. Like they don't just, like McDonald's isn't, red and yellow one day and then I don't know, purple and green the other. It stays that way on their website, on their flyers, on their advertisements. It's always that color because there's some psychological connection there, right? So I didn't even have to look into what the psychological connection is or why or whatever. I just know they're doing it. Every single company is doing it. So and it must work, if they're all doing it. So I looked at it that way and just, and followed that, role model type thing. And then as far as like measuring it, like there is really no way to measure it, but I do think it does play a role in people's mind because ever since I opened this place, I've been getting so many gifts that are orange. Like that ball right there, I got that as a gift. I got a pack of Tic Tacs and the orange flavors. Yeah. I get orange Gatorade. I got like just a bunch of orange things. People just give me orange things. I got an orange sajada for my sisters. I got that orange water bottle as a gift. So people are associating the color orange with me. So when people
and they're not helping you.
Yeah, now I don't have to buy anything. The next thing, inshallah, is the orange Lamborghini. I'm waiting for somebody to give me that one. But we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it is working because people do associate the color with me.
One thing that I did want to kind of transition into, you kind of touched on this a little bit when you were giving your introduction, but the aspect of actually getting the word out. I think people like me who are, I would say like I'm introverted, right? Like I don't necessarily enjoy putting myself out there. I don't have a problem doing it, but it takes a lot of energy to do that stuff, right? The problem we always have is the distribution of whatever it is. If it's a product, service, whatever it is, how do we actually get people to come in and actually use it? Right? For you, it seems like it came a little bit easier and you were able to kind of quickly scale this barber business. And so I wanted to just pick your brain on that is like, how do you actually put yourself out there to act like you have a real business and you were able to use Instagram? Am I right in that?
Yeah.
Like was it just Instagram or did you also have some other?
It started off as word of mouth. That was like the big one, right? I didn't open my Instagram page until maybe 3 or 4 months after I started cutting hair. But word of mouth was mainly the main source for a while. But then I realized, okay, now it's time to hit, level 2. And I realized that Instagram is the greatest source of today's generation. And it's so neglected by so many people who start businesses. Unfortunately, a lot of older people, they don't realize the potential it has. The second literally the day I opened my Instagram page, my clientele shot up.
Really?
Every single time for a solid, I don't know, I don't even know how long, but for a while, every single time I posted a post of a haircut, I'd get a DM saying, hey, I need a haircut.
Every single time?
Every single time for the longest time, right? And I don't know if that's probably why I'm still getting new clients all the time. Maybe it is because of the posts still. But people just don't realize the potential that Instagram has. It's not just a social network anymore. It's literally it's free advertisement.
Yeah. Speaking of free advertisement, I'm curious to know, did you spend any money on growing that Instagram, or was it all just posting pictures of people?
Like not a single dollar, just posting pictures, literally free. Now I know they have you can pay for Instagram to boost your posts.
Right.
I've never done that. It's an option, but I don't even think you need it.
So you've been able to get through organic, just posting people's pictures without paying a cent.
Nothing.
You're getting clients.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you said you were building your personal Instagram before you created a barber Instagram.
Yeah.
So what was the difference in those two profiles? Were you also sharing some of your barber stuff on your before you started that one? Were you doing a lot of that stuff there, or did it really start over there? And how do you differentiate the two and kind of keep both of them going at the same time?
So, I mean, it's funny that you asked that question because it's something that I've been thinking about recently. And it's something I'm still trying to figure out because at the time it just started out as just I kind of look at it as you have one son. I mean, I'm not a father, but from what I imagine, you have one son and you focus all your attention and attraction towards that
His
son.
favorite kid.
Right. And then you have another one and now you have to try to balance it out.
Mm.
And I'm in that phase of trying to figure out how do I balance it out. And the thing is, you're not going to always show, if you have a son and a daughter, you're not going to show them the love the same exact way, right? And that's how it is with my Instagram. And I realized, when I pick up my phone and start recording, if I'm recording from my main account, from my personal account, my tone, my demeanor will be so different than if I'm recording from my barber account.
Mm.
And I think a part of it is because I know the demographic of my following on my personal main, and I know the demographic of my following on my barber account, and the message I try to get across. I have a very strict message and purpose behind my main account and a completely different message and purpose on my barber account. So they are completely two different entities. I don't look at them as the same. It was recommended to me by so many people to not open two accounts. And so many of my barber friends have just their one account, and that's where they post their personal and their barber content. Me, I'm so glad that I didn't go that route. I'm so glad that I split them because of the fact that there's a message that there's a professional image I want to keep on my barber account. And then there's the personal, more loose image I want to keep on my personal account.
You said the messaging is different and the demographics are different. Do you mind getting into the details a little bit there for the two different accounts? I know in one, it's clearly people that are looking for haircuts. Right. And then for your personal, how are you thinking through that? I know you do some work in the community, especially with youth that you mentioned, right? So how are you, if you don't mind just sharing?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no problem. So I'll start with the first one, which was my personal account, my main account. And I call it my main account because that's the one, honestly, that I focus more on. That's why my brain refers to it as my main account. But with that one, I kind of figured out that I want to show, and this kind of gets into the aspect of religion. I wanted to show young Muslims that you can be a Muslim who doesn't drink, who doesn't cuss, who doesn't listen to music, who doesn't smoke weed, who doesn't have any friends that are girls, who's not dating anyone, who doesn't have any tattoos, and be a Muslim that doesn't do all that and still have a good time in life and still have fun in life, right? Because one thing when I was younger, I looked at it as Islam doesn't want me to have fun, whatsoever. All these things that are fun, they're prohibited. And then as I grew up, I realized that's not the case. I was I'm living the best life without doing any of those things that Islam prohibits. So I just wanted to show kind of for those kids that are in the position that I was in when I was younger, I want to show them that, hey, it's not like that, So that was the main message or, purpose behind my main account. And then with the barber account, the reason I can't do that as much is because I'm not trying to attract only a Muslim clientele,
Right.
I'm open to, Muslims and non-Muslims, all types of religions. And I love it because sometimes I'm a huge person on religion. when I get anybody that's Christian or Sikh or Sikh, some people pronounce it differently, or Hindu, I like if the person's comfortable with it, we talk about religion, like the entire haircut. Like we just share the differences and learn from each other. So my barber account, it's not that I can't push that message, and if I did push it, then I would only be attracting a select group of people, and I want to kind of widen that demographic. So, and then on top of that, there's also like with my main account, it's kind of more like a little bit of comedy, just kind of me being me, just funny, goofy, whatever. And then the image that I want to give on my barber account is that this is like not just your average barbershop that you can just, go to, get, stop by, get a walk-in haircut and leave. I want it to be I want to give it that more like VIP professional type experience, which is why I have it secluded in like a private studio, and I call it a private studio because it's not like loud and there's a bunch of barbers cutting, and it's literally when the client comes, it's one-on-one, me and the client alone. We got the TV, with the background noise. I'm just focusing on that client the entire time, and I give them, a bigger time gap than most other barbers do, I think. So that way they feel like they're focused on the entire time. Like they're getting the money's worth for the time. They're getting the time that they're paying for.
So it's a completely VIP experience.
Yeah, which is what I'm trying to set.
If you don't mind me asking, how much do you charge for a haircut?
So right now, I just announced that I'm upping my price in January. For half of this year, it was 30 hair and then 40 with beard. And January is going to be, starting January 1st, 40 hair, 50 with beard.
Okay. That's awesome, man. That's, I know some barbers are just kind of like way out of reach, but you're getting this VIP experience for, it seems like it's a bargain, right? So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm curious about just looking at your pages is, so I follow you. I've been following you for a while, and I think it's really, I enjoy watching both your stories and your posts and all that stuff. So wanted to ask you how you think through your overall strategy for your personal. So I know you kind of mentioned what you're trying to do. And then I wanted to get into, it seems like your posts are more like videos and creative projects you're working on. And then the actual, like on your stories, you're doing like conversations with people, right? Like you're sharing your day. It's almost like a vlog where people are getting to see behind the scenes of what's happening and kind of experiencing what you're experiencing, right? So is that accurate, or is that what you're trying to do? And then kind of like, how are you thinking through post versus story, and where do you put your efforts into more, and what do you see is the better way to go for what you're trying to do? You know what I mean? Like, I know there's kind of a all over the place loaded question.
Yeah. So that's somewhat accurate. With my posts, I know a lot of people who are on Instagram, like influencers or whatnot. They have like a set tone for the Instagram. So like, oh, this guy's that guy that posts. For example, was that guy Brother Nature? Like almost every single. You know who that is?
No.
He's some guy basically. He's like very, very friendly with animals. He's like an animal spirit basically. He like every animal you think of. He's like had interactions with, and his is like you go on his page and that's pretty much all you're gonna see, right? And that's what he built his following on, right? For me, I didn't want to have one specific thing that people know me as. I just want to have my page be purely me. One day it's gonna be I don't know, a funny skit. The other day it's gonna be me, giving some Islamic advice. And then the next day it might be, I don't know, me teaching people how to, fix a car or something, just literally just who I am and what I do. That's as far as posts go. As far as stories go, I think you hit it, you hit it pretty accurately. Just kind of behind the scenes, day to day, kind of like a vlog, I feel like with starting from Vine and Instagram started videos and TikTok now, people's attention span is getting shorter, and people don't really want to watch vlogs as much as people did back then. Like a 10-minute vlog, people just want to watch something quick. So a story kind of gives them that, you can tap through it real quick, it's short, 15-second clips, and you can kind of pop in and pop out anytime. So I like to kind of think of it as that, like my daily vlog type thing on my story. The stories aren't as professional as the posts are. The posts I put like more time into them, more edit them, because that's something that's going to remain on the page. That's like my portfolio. And with the stories, it's going to be there for 24 hours. The people who are already following me, they're going to watch the stories, and then the posts. I'm hoping to attract people who not only are following me, but people who don't follow me. So that's why I want to give it more of a professional image.
One thing you mentioned here is that some people, influencers, they have kind of like one lane that they stay in, and you wanted to make sure that you are presenting your whole self, all the different interests you have and that kind of thing. I see it as well, right? Like you see their bio is like expert in X, and then every single post is about that. Every single thing about their profile is about that. And I feel like definitely I feel like the algorithm favors things like that because they know exactly what you're getting when you go to that profile. Whereas like someone like you, and like I consider myself like this too, but I just don't post as much. Where it's like it's hard to put you in a box. I don't know which kind of person who to feed you. So do you feel like that has limited your followers at all, or do you think it hasn't really had an impact?
So I think it might have, because I think yes and no, because if I were to post something that blew up, right? The reason it blew up is because a lot of people liked it, a lot of people shared it, right? So people would click my account to see more of that same content, and they might be disappointed because there's not as much as they thought, right? Like for me, when I see something cool, like there was these two guys that I watched. I seen one video from them, and I ended up watching like pretty much all their videos. It was them kind of seeing if like those TikTok hacks are real, like they work or not. Just random hacks, right? And I seen one. It was like they stuck a popcorn kernel or something on the end of a air compressor, and they blew it, and it popped into popcorn pop. And their idea was to see if it's real or fake. They watch it, they try it out, they tell you, yeah, this actually works. No, this doesn't work. And then I clicked on their page, and I saw like every single video was another one of those things, real or fake, real or fake, real or fake. And I watched so many of them, and I was so happy. And I ended up following them because of that. Now I want to see that content. With me, people might see something they like, they click on my page, they don't find much of it. So for that reason, I think that it does limit my following. On the other hand, and I'm not, I don't consider myself, like even an influencer yet. I think that's where I'm trying to go to because of the role models and bringing the role model aspect again. The role models that I'm looking at are people who have a much bigger following than me, right? And there's some people that look at me as like a role model when it comes to following because they have less followers than me. But I don't think I'm, on the grand scheme of things, I don't think I'm nowhere near considered an influencer yet. But the second part, the reason I think that my page kind of having all these random things might work is something that it not necessarily is new, but it's new for me because this is my thought on it. I'm thinking that I want to post enough posts to where if somebody likes something that they see, let's say I post a mechanic video and they see it, one of my non-followers, and then they want to see more of it, they can click my page and find the videos that are for, that are catered towards the people who like mechanic videos. Same thing with, Islamic video. Now I'm bringing in the mechanics, the people who are like, followers of Islam, the people who are into haircuts, the people, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking that it might increase my following in that sense, where I'm not only focusing on one certain group of people, not just the people who like mechanic videos. I'm focusing on all of them. Like I everything that I do, I can attract followers from all of those different categories.
No, I agree with you. I think,
and it's just a theory.
I think the problem with these algorithms is that they try to kind of put you in a box, but it's like the reality is humans are not like that. Like we all have diverse interests. It's not like I like cars and that's the only thing I like. You know what I mean? So it's like forcing us to kind of show on Instagram or YouTube, whatever it may be, just one thing and sticking to that so they can get more of that. You know what I mean? Because their ultimate goal is like what you said. When you go on their profile, you stay on there, you watch a bunch of these different videos. right? And although I agree with you, and I think although the algorithm may not like it and it may not feed you to as many people, I think the people you do get are probably real. They like Mohammad Turaani. You know what I mean? Like,
rather than the content. So
right, yeah. It's not like, oh, this guy makes cool stuff. It's like, oh man, this guy is a cool guy. Like I want to hang out with him. That kind of thing. So
and if it doesn't blow up, what's cool about it is that, like I said, I try to remind myself of the initial intention of having my account, my main account, of just showing Muslims that you can have fun without doing all the haram, is that even if it doesn't blow up or doesn't go anywhere, I know that I still have this set of followers who do watch me in the community, at least, and if they're seeing all this cool fun stuff that I do on my page, and I'm still posting about prayers, and I'm still posting about fasting, and posting about making dua and following the religion, I think that'll show them what my initial intention is, and kind of show them that you can't be a good Muslim without doing all the haram.
I think one thing that you just brought up that I'm really curious about is, in our religion, intention is everything, right? So how, with these platforms, it can be really easy to get caught up in like how many numbers, how many likes, how many followers I'm getting. How do you balance that? How do you think through that? And how do you make sure that you don't get too caught up in, I've noticed myself sometimes I'll just be like checking every like 10 minutes.
It's a trap, man. So that's something I did think about at one point, and my, I guess, security system with that is I had my mentor. I make sure that he's following me. He checks out my Instagram periodically and makes sure that I'm not deviating from the original intention. He's the main one who kind of monitors it, I guess. Then I have a few others that kind of just, if I'm falling off, the rails, that he can kind of let me know. And then just reminding myself sometimes, before I do hit post, on most posts, I tend to ask myself, like, is this following that, or is this just me trying to, I don't know, get more clout, or you know what I mean? So there is like that, gray area, you know what I mean? Of sometimes you do want, you are, attracted to the likes, because as humans, we naturally like attention, maybe not everyone, but, so, some people are, like you said, more introverts, they could care less, But, so there's like a,
So it sounds like you're saying it's a combination of, number one, being conscious with it, right? Like having intention with your posts. And number two is also having an actual check, right? Like an actual someone that is like, hey, what you just posted is kind of whack, right? Like, having someone like that. So
exactly.
I think one thing that one of the last older episodes we did was about a company where they released an ad which was like totally like offensive. And it was like, how does this happen at like a company of this scale? And it's like, you have to have those checks and balances, right? So I think that's another important branding principle, is like, sometimes we get so caught up in trying to get these likes that we lose our actual principles, which is essentially like our brand, right? Or perception. And so you have to have people that are there as safeguards, and people that are able to tell you, hey, this is not in line with what you're trying to do, because you're so in it, right? Like you're creating content all the time. It's like, it's hard to think through it every single time.
Right, exactly.
And that kind of leads me to my next thing is, do you have like a schedule, both for your barber page and then your personal page? Do you have like a certain, I want to do this many posts every week, or I want to make sure I do this many stories, or is it just as you get content?
So that's one thing that is like one of my, somewhere I'm slacking, to be honest. I've been telling myself for the longest that I want to have a schedule for both my barber account, and that every week I have to post, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 posts. And same thing with my personal account. I want to have one video at least posted once a week. I've been telling myself for like 3-4 months that I'm going to set a schedule, like Monday at 8, I'm going to record a video and edit it that same night and post it. But I just haven't got around to it. That's like another thing, like when it comes to like discipline and all that, trying to discipline myself to actually hop on that schedule. Because, one big aspect of all of this is consistency, right? People aren't going to be as engaged if there isn't consistency, right? So that's one thing that I'm struggling with right now. I do think about it, and I am trying to actively work towards it, but it is You know, you gotta put. And the thing is, like how we were talking about, like one thing that motivated me to stay disciplined when it came to cutting hair, was seeing the success. So with that, it's kind of like, the feedback is right there. When I finish cutting somebody's hair, I can either tell if they're satisfied or not satisfied with it, and I can tell, if they tip or if they don't tip, right? And I'm getting the money regardless at the end of the day, right? I got paid that day, so there is like a sense of like, okay, like I did it, like here's a success right here in my hands. With Instagram, it's different, like did this post do well or not? Like it's not like this one post is gonna make my entire account, right? You have to keep posting to see the success, to see yourself kind of grow in numbers on Instagram. And it's not like every night you grow a certain amount. It's kind of like a long-term thing. It's not like with cutting hair every night I get paid. So because it takes longer to see the success, I feel like you lose out on that kind of ability to discipline yourself by seeing the success. You know what I mean?
I'm going to give you a tough question, and I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here.
Let's hear it.
You mentioned that your intentions are to essentially show that you can be a Muslim and stay within the realm of permissibility and also have a good time and really enjoy life. But then we're also over here and we're talking about, and I think this is not what I believe, but I think sometimes people can think like marketing, branding, all this stuff, there's a negative connotation with it when it comes to pushing yourself, putting yourself out there, right? And people may think that it's all about how do I grow, how do I do this, and you're just chasing the likes. So how do you reconcile both these? Like you do want to grow, right? It's not like you want no one to see your stuff, right? You're doing this, and one of the priorities is to make your Instagram as big as possible, I'm assuming, right?
Right.
And then, but at the same time, you don't want to let that like cloud your main intention. So how do you reconcile these two and make sure that, how are you thinking through that?
So the way I look at it is, like I said, with my initial intention, which I stated, for me to, I think, I don't think it's arguable to say that it's a good intention. I think it's a good intention and something that can help people who are in the situation I was when I was younger realize that it's not a true perception of life. So if I want, and I know that there's so many kids out there that have that perception of life or perception of Islam. If I want to kind of show people that, I have to kind of increase in followings so more and more people get that message that I'm trying to send across. You get what I mean? So, and which is why I stated earlier that at the end of the day, if I never do blow up to that certain benchmark or whatever, I'm still grateful that I was able to get some people in the community at least to recognize that. Just hearing the feedback from some people. Sometimes I'll cut somebody's hair who I've never met before, and they tell me, "Yeah, I've been watching your stuff, man, for like a year, and you're the reason." Last week I went to Friday Bear, that just like when YouTubers say like, "Oh, if one person benefits from this, that's all I need." And I always thought that was so corny, but wallahi, like when you do get just that one person, you feel like you did it,
Right.
And I know it's like we don't want to have a sense of accomplishment. We don't want to because then that's gonna make us stagnant. But hearing that just that one person, I feel like alhamdulillah, maybe my entire Instagram, maybe I'll never get that amount of followers. Maybe it was just made for that one person to start praying.
Wow, that's powerful. So it sounds like if I had to distill it down to just kind of like one line, is like the distinctive factor is that when you are growing for yourself and it's because I want to see myself become big, that's the problem. But when you're doing it out of a sake of generosity, whereas like I want to share this with people because they will benefit.
Yeah.
And it becomes an act of service almost, right? Like it's not self-conceited and of course all these like platforms and algorithms it's hard to like that temptation is always there. It's tough, but really you got to keep reminding yourself that this is service that you're doing, right? Like you growing is also a service that you're providing and helping people. That's a really profound way to look at it.
And of course, like we can't like be naive or oblivious to the fact that fame does change people. So if I were to grow, like, let's say I were to grow like an insane amount, and then I got all this fame out of nowhere.
And I couldn't do the podcast with you anymore.
No, man. If I ever make it like on that level, I'm gonna come back here. We'll make another one. But man, if you ever make it, you better hit me back up,
For
man.
sure.
But no, it does. Like we see it so many times, and like we have so many examples in the world that people who blow up and people who knew them before they blew up say that they changed. And though the reason I do want to increase in following is to kind of spread the benefit to more and more people. The reason I put that security mechanism, like I mentioned earlier, which is my mentor to watch my stuff, is for him to keep me in check, for him to keep me to monitor my stuff and see, like, all right, is it kind of steering more towards the direction of him just doing it just to become famous and just to be known and just to be popular, or is it still for the main intention? And sometimes you can't see as clearly when you're inside the box. So you have these people on the outside who are watching you from the outside the box, and just kind of looking at it from there, who can check you when you can't check yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, there's an example that I've used before, but it's like you can't smell the smell of your own feces, right? Like you can like sit in the bathroom all day thinking like, oh, whatever, but like someone else comes in, they can't even stand there for like a minute. They're like, man, it smells so bad.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's kind of what you're.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, it's nasty,
but
it's a good analogy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention about that, which is kind of off topic, is that when it comes to friendships, I know a lot of people in the community tell one of their friends that, hey, like, if I'm ever like acting out of character in any situation, I want you to be they appoint a person to check them on it. So that way they know that, hey, like, okay, somebody were to tell me, like, now I know I have the authority to like kind of watch this guy all the time when we're hanging out, when we're out in public, if there's altercation or whatever. And if he does anything, I pull him aside, like, hey, you need to cool it. You're not being you. Because we tend to get lost, in this dunya. And a big one is which is kind of off topic. I don't know if you want to put this in, but a big one that's kind of off topic too is like when it comes to like guys and girls in the community. So it's like a known thing that when girls are around, like for example, one time we had a qiyam, and guys were and the girls were kind of sitting in the gym, and the guys were just like playing with the basketball. And me and this other guy were watching the guys play basketball, and they were on this side of the court, and the girls were just sitting on the other side of the court. And these guys were playing like it was NBA Finals. Like, I'm talking like hardcore, like the sweetest layups, like trying to dunk it, And these girls are barely paying attention, So it's good to have somebody to watch you in that type of situation, like when there's girls around, for example. Like, are you acting different? Or is it when a girl walks in the room, does your tone change? Do you start acting funnier? You know what I mean? It's good to, because you're not going to notice it sometimes yourself, Right. So having somebody point it out for you is, like you said, they smell your feces, not you.
That's awesome. Last couple of things I wanted to talk about. Number one is, if someone is starting a barbershop today, right? Like, let's say they're where you were at when you were 18. What advice do you have for them to get their stuff off the ground?
I can't do that, man. I'm creating my own competition if I tell you that, man. I'm just kidding. No. People have, like, younger guys have came to me and told me, hey, can I learn from you? And I told them, like, by all means, like, come and just, stand next to me all day and watch me cut hair, and I'll teach you everything. Because I think that, it's rizq from Allah, like, for them to grow in any way they want, and I don't want to, like, put a stop to that, right? If anybody, even if it means I do create my own competition. But one piece of advice I'd give is Instagram. Like, post every single day. Make sure you're getting your stuff out there. Make sure, quality and quantity, honestly, just both. Make sure they're good pictures. Make sure you have good captions. You're taking pictures in good lighting. And for me, like, one big thing is the reason I upgraded my phone. At one point, I didn't need a new phone. I had a solid phone, but I said, this isn't the best camera that's out there right now. So I'm gonna get the phone with the best camera, so that way when I post, it's the best quality images. So invest in that and the quality of the pictures.
Is that why you also have these lights?
Yeah, that's a big one too, because lighting is a big thing, when it comes to photography. Anybody that knows anything about photography, they'll tell you lighting is key. It's number one. So without lighting, it could be the best haircut in the world, but if there's no lighting, who's gonna see it?
Right.
So yeah, I would just recommend Instagram. Just post as much as you can.
And then when it comes to actual like tactics on Instagram, is it just as simple as posting the haircuts? I know, like you said, you started with some free haircuts, and I guess giveaways were like, hey, if you message me right now, like, what are some ways to actually start engaging people and growing that? I know one thing that you also do is, I don't know if you do this on your barber page, but I know on your personal page you have like collaborations with other people, right? And so just kind of what tactics can you take to really scale that Instagram from like 0? I think, what number are you at?
My barber account,
both.
On my main account, I think I'm at 4.2, and then my barber account, I'm at, I think 3.5, 3.6, something like that.
Would you
maybe
say
it's 2.5? I don't know. I haven't checked it. Like they just come in and I don't like.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Like I try not to get too indulged in the numbers, But
would you say 0 to like 1,000 was like the toughest?
0 to 1,000. 0 to 1,000 was.
Or did you?
It wasn't the
toughest.
leverage. No. It wasn't the toughest, but it was like a milestone. Like when I hit that 1,000, I was like, "Yo, I have 1,000 followers," and at the time that was huge to me. When I hit 4,000, I was like, "Wow!" And now 4,000 is like I've been at that for a while, and I'm trying to move past that. So it's like 4,000 is nothing to me. Like to me now, the next big thing is like 10,000. When I hit 10,000, that's like a big deal. And I'm sure once I hit that and I get used to it, I'm gonna 100,000 is gonna. So no, 0 to 1,000 wasn't the hardest, but it was definitely like a milestone that I won't forget. How
did you, like, for someone that's just starting out, how do you get from 0 to 1,000?
So, like that kind of ties into your last question of, how starting out, in general. So you want people to, share your content. And the way to do that is to get people to, you want to attract people. So one of the tactics is like the one that you mentioned that I did was, didn't charge people for haircuts for a while, and everybody knows in the beginning phase of a business you're gonna lose out, whether that's a year or 3 years. For me, thankfully it was only a month, but
not to rub it in right
now.
People losing money.
Like for you guys it's a year, for me 1 month. No, I'm kidding, but because it was it's so small. But even then I was only charging $10. Like once I actually started charging, it was $10. And technically in a way I probably like I was cutting out of the basement, so it was 100% profit. But if I was cutting out of somewhere like this where I have to pay monthly bills and provide all these snacks and the water and all the equipment and all that, I would be losing. Because if I'm getting $10 per haircut and I have all these bills, like I'm definitely in a like, deficiency. But you can't just jump to 100. You have to kind of work your way up, and if that means starting at 0, it means starting at 0. You're gonna just have to bite that bullet, start at 0, take the loss, and just work your way up. And then that's as far as like kind of growing the business, and as far as growing the Instagram, which in a way is a business. It's kind of the same thing. You just kind of have to like sacrifice time to making content. It might not be as profitable for you in the beginning, but it will be in the future. That's what's going to build you later on.
Well, one of the things that we didn't really touch on that I think is very important that I probably should have added more of in the actual meat of the episode rather than the tail end is the actual like experience for the customers and how to retain customers, right? Like someone comes to you once, you do a good job with their haircut, and then how do you make sure that they are coming back? Are there like specific things you do? I know we talk a little bit about how you try to make it a VIP experience, and like how do you make sure that's an experience that they remember and they're coming back every single time?
So I think there's maybe 3 or 4 things that will bring them back. The first one, which is the obvious one, is the haircut itself. Is it a good haircut or a bad haircut? The second one would be me as a person. How is my personality while I'm cutting their hair? Am I talkative? Am I social or am I just quiet and awkward? And the third one is the environment where they are in the place. So I would say these 3 points are key elements to bringing a client back. If you're a good barber and the haircut is good, that's step number 1, but that doesn't 100% ensure them to come back. Why? Because your personality might be a bit awkward. I know there's a lot of people that get a haircut with somebody and it's an amazing haircut, but because of how awkward they were in that chair the entire 30 to an hour, they just won't go back there. No matter how good they go, because there's plenty of good barbers, right? But everybody has a different personality. So that's number 2, and then the third one which is the environment. I personally like to have just a bunch of amenities as much as I can. I have the PlayStation, I have the coffee maker, I have the snacks, I have the water, all these things that people can kind of enjoy while they wait, make them feel comfortable and give them that kind of VIP experience, kind of like an Uber, when if you go to a base model Uber, you might get water and that's about it, maybe nothing, If you go to the higher end Ubers, you're going to get snacks, granola bars, and a bunch of random amenities that make you give you that VIP experience.
Yeah, you touched on this with these 3 things: product, the haircut itself, personality, and environment. But just wanted to get your thoughts on. There's you're essentially competing with Great Clips, right? And these franchise barbers. And how are you thinking
There's
through?
No competition.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
No. When I talk to barbers, I often get that same response where Great Clips is not really competition, right? And so I'm curious to hear your perspective on that and how you're thinking through that. And I think you kind of highlighted it here with how you're differentiating yourself.
So I meant that as a joke. I don't think that Great Clips is a successful business, and it's a growing business. People go to Great Clips, and I think it's great for them. But I think what I offer and what Great Clips offers is 2 different things in the same field, but completely 2 different types. They offer more of the kind of more affordable, quicker, simpler type haircuts, which some people like. Some people don't want to come and spend X amount of dollars and be here for that amount of time. Some people don't want to have to set an appointment 2 weeks in advance. They'd just rather go to Great Clips, get the simple haircut and leave and pay a small price, right? On the other hand, there's people who want to pay that higher price for a better quality haircut, something more intricate, fades and tapers and things like that. They want the VIP experience, the one-on-one, the more lengthy in time haircut. So that's the people that I cater towards, and Great Clips caters towards a completely different type of clientele. And so that's why I wouldn't say there's necessarily me and Great Clips aren't necessarily competing, because we're not going after the same customers. Exactly.
I think from my perspective, one of the things that I noticed is that if you look at traditional franchises on in the food space, for example, McDonald's, Taco Bell, these places, the reason why they're successful is that wherever you go in the United States, you're going to get the same exact thing. And I think the tough part with haircuts is that you can write down it's a scissor on the side and number whatever here, but at this where does it end, and what special things did the barber actually do is when you pick a barber, you're going to get the same thing every single time. Whereas Great Clips is you might get a good barber, you might get someone that even though they have the same instructions, right? They're just not going to do a good enough job. So for me, at least, that's one thing that I see is with a barber, I will always take a personality and person that I trust over Great Clips, just because I know I'm going to get the same thing every single time. I'm not into fades or any of this stuff, but I just want to know that the person's not going to mess up my hair, right? It's really as simple as that. So
and it's cool that you say that, because everybody has a different taste when it comes to that. For you, is you don't want a crazy intricate haircut, but you just want somebody to give you the same exact thing every time and not mess it up. Sometimes people will, find, I know some of my clients they hop around. They go to maybe 4 or 5 different barbers. All of these barbers kind of do these intricate haircuts, the fades and stuff like that, and they do it well. So that means they don't necessarily care as much for the personality in that same person doing the same exact cut, as long as it's generally a nice fade. You know what I mean? So, and everybody has their different tastes. Some people are like, it's like kind of like a spectrum type thing, you know?
They're cheating on you.
Essentially.
No, I'm just kidding.
But no, I mean, that's another interesting point. I don't know if you want to open that kind of worms, like, oh, how do barbers deal with that? Because I know, like, I've met, like, both opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, some barbers that could care less. Like, you can come to me once, don't come to me for a year, and then come back and I'll still cut your hair. And other barbers are like, if you come to me, you're locked in, and you better not go anywhere else.
Oh, really?
You know? Yeah. And like they actually get offended when their client cheats on them, you know. And then there's like a tier of clientele also. You know, there's a clientele that has been coming to you for a while, and when they do go to somebody else, it's like you start to question what did I do something? Like what was going on? You feel me? It's like a relationship, you know. It's like you know what I mean?
Thought we had something good here.
Right? Exactly. And then there's like all those other people that like you see once in a while, and they just never were locked in. So it's like it depends on, you know, the barber himself, how he feels about it, and then like what type of client it is.
So how do you feel about it?
So for me, this is how I look at it. Speaking on the clients who have been coming to me for a while, that are people who I consider clients, like my clients, right? These are people that come to me and nowhere else. If at one point, for whatever reason, they stopped coming to me and started going somewhere else, I'd like to know why only for one reason, to know where I messed up and how I can improve, right? And I don't get upset that they went somewhere else. Why? Because that's something that God wrote for that barber, like his sustenance, his risk, you know? And I think it would be very immature for me to get upset at that, because at that point, that sustenance is no longer written for me. That's written for that barber, you know? Only thing I want to gain out of it is I want to make sure me and that client are still cool. There's no, like, nothing, you know, like no negativity between us, and what I did wrong, so that way I can improve it next time for the next client. So I don't, and then you know, so I don't necessarily. It doesn't upset me, you know. But I would like to know why.
Just so you can improve and make sure you're not making the same mistake.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Last thing that you know, sometimes I forget to ask this on podcasts, but I try to always end with this. Is what is your favorite brand? And you can't say
really.
Yeah,
I like that question.
Yeah, you can't say
Apple.
I already knew you were going to say Apple. So like, 100%. So for the people that follow Mohammad Turaani, you'll already know he's a big Apple fan. So I'm going to say you can't pick Apple. What's the next thing that comes to mind?
Find out next time. No, that's something I have to think about, man. Apple is up there, like, cause like this is how I look at it, like.
We've had too many guests that have said Apple.
Really?
Yeah, like
because like bro, like okay, you know how like you could say like I don't know if somebody's like a fan of Nike and Adidas, like you're like yeah Nike, and then the next one would be Adidas. Like to me, it's like Apple, and then the next one is like somewhere down here, you know. And I don't even know what they are. But I mean, there are a few companies. Okay, I'll tell you. Like, can I answer it in a different way?
Yeah, sure.
I like companies that are modern and simplistic. So companies like, I really like the brand Lululemon, for example.
Oh, really?
You know, yeah, because they have that kind of like if Apple made clothes, like that's the Apple of clothes, you know. Tesla. If Apple made cars, Tesla is the Apple of cars. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that simplistic, clean, modern, like continuity between the products. That's what I love so much. I think Apple, like by far, kills the game.
Right.
With any like in all like when it comes to especially to continuity in all industries, which is why I'm such a big fan. But there are other companies that do it, like Lululemon and Tesla. I think.
I'm surprised that you didn't say Mustang.
Ford, man, Ford got a lot to work on. Listen, I'm a fan of Mustangs, but not Ford necessarily. And honestly, like probably the only reason that I did become a fan of Mustangs is because it just happened to be my first car that I found. There was no like before I ever got a Mustang. Like I was honestly searching for a Camaro.
Oh really?
Now I hate Camaros just because I have a Mustang, you know. But there was nothing that like stood out to me necessarily about it. It just happened to be when I was searching for a car that I found that I could afford. I bought it, and then I became a Mustang guy just like that. But with Apple, like I chose Apple, you know. Like I mean, there's a connection there.
Yeah,
you know.
You have like another. If you wanted to, you could probably be like a MKBHD. Just reviewing tech products.
I love that. Like that lifestyle is so cool to me. I wish. But
yeah, man.
Maybe in another world.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Had a really good time. Yeah.
Appreciate it, bro. Well, thank you for
This is
having
the
me.
first time
It was
I had a handshake at the end.
Really?
Yeah, because we don't do it in person.
They're not, bro. We're on a different level. You feel me?
Right.
I do it a little bit differently.
If you're in the Detroit metro area and want a killer haircut, I'll leave the link to Mohammed's Instagram and booking page in the show notes. Now, as always, I have my key takeaways, but before we get into that, I want to share a clip from our discussion with Amani Mahisen on branding a bakery.
I normally was doing about 18 dozen a week. I made 40 dozen pastries for that pop-up. And my family was helping me take everything out to the cars. And as I'm doing that, I can hear them at the dinner table, a few of my cousins and some uncles, and they're like, why did she make so much? No one's gonna show up. Why'd she do it in Ann Arbor? Now really, no one's gonna show up. And they're saying all this to me, and I'm getting ready for this event, and my nerves are running. And I'm like, did I overbake? Is no one gonna show up? I don't know what's gonna happen. I got there, and the event was supposed to be 3 to 4 hours long. I sold out within an hour of everything. I had people posting, complaining that it was supposed to be open for X amount of time, and I sold out within the first hour of it.
If you enjoyed this discussion with Mohammed, I am sure you'll also enjoy the discussion with Amani. Check it out wherever you're listening to this podcast. It is episode number 27. Now, here are my key takeaways. Number 1, if you're operating multiple social media accounts, you have to be very clear about the target audience and messaging for each account that you have. And number 2, sticking to a color theme can be a powerful way to remain top of mind for your target audience. And that is all for this episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, please leave a review and share with a friend. It really helps the podcast grow. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.